So there's been a lot of fallout and a lot of strong opinions about what happened at the Belgian Grand Prix, or should I say specifically what happened before the race, because we had that delay due to the rain, and a lot of people have come out and said that basically that was not on. They really should not have delayed things. But conversely, some people have said that the rain delay was correct. It was a sensible thing to do. And there's a lot of strong opinions on this, basically. And I think that what Pierre Gasly here is suggesting is that we get everybody in a room, we talk about it, and we kind of go from there. And I think that's a sensible way to go about it, because if people are just mouthing off, for lack of a better term, in the media, they're not really engaging properly with the critics, the people that have different opinions about this. Now, whether you thought this was the right move or not, I think a sensible discussion is, well, sensible, to be honest. But let's have a look at what Pierre Gasly has been saying here, guys. Full article on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Pierre Gasly says drivers will open talks with the FIA to improve decision-making around wet weather racing, after the governing body delayed the Spa sprint amid criticism and confusion. The FIA justified its conservative approach by citing past tragedies at Spa and poor visibility with the current generation of ground effect cars. Now, of course, we did speak earlier in the week about how the 26 cars should help remedy this, but we've still got a lot of 2025 to go. We've had several races this year run in wet conditions: Silverstone, Belgium, Miami Sprint, and of course the season opening Australian Grand Prix. So it's entirely possible we may have this problem again later in the season, and I think a lot of people would rather avoid it personally. But Gasly believes that clearer protocols and more collaborative discussions are needed going forwards. We'll work on that, said the Alpine driver. I'm sure we're going to talk about it in the driver's briefing next race. They'll do even better and we'll find the right adjustment. It's a fine line. We want to race in the wet. It's always exciting, but not when you can't see and when you crash on the Kemmel Straight and have to explain that to another family. Gasly said the current situation is unsustainable though. We want to see overtaking and skill in the rain, not a race decided on whether you can see 2 meters ahead. At Silverstone, a driver hit another car purely from lack of visibility. That is not racing. I think he's referring to Isaac Hadjar there, hitting the back of Kimi Antonelli. Very scary incident. He could not see a thing, and the stewards agreed, no penalty. Whereas normally hitting a car up the rear end like that would be a penalty, absolutely. Alex Albon echoed the frustration, particularly over how drivers are being perceived. We look weak, he said. It's not that the tyres are bad, it's that we can't see anything. At 250 kilometers per hour, you can't see more than 20 meters. Only we know what's happening in the car, but it makes us look like we're complaining instead of racing. Now, you might hear that 20 meters and think, oh, well, that's a long way. That you can drive in those conditions. I've driven in those conditions on the motorway, but obviously these cars are going far faster than you on the motorway. You know, 2 car lengths is usually the standard kind of gap to leave in dry conditions on a motorway here in the UK. So that's what, about 6 meters or so, something like that. But these guys are going 3 times the motorway speed limit around Formula 1 tracks, if not even quicker. So it's not really comparable. Some believe the root of the problem lies with the cars and tyres themselves, and Gasly agreed with this sentiment. We know the spray is definitely not great with these cars. They've done testing with things like wheel covers, but we still need to find a way to reduce the spray so we can actually use wet tyres. Fernando Alonso, drawing on decades of experience, believes circuit design also plays a role in this problem. Some tracks produce a lot of spray, others have zero. If we implement that type of asphalt everywhere, we'll have zero spray. Carlos Sainz, who is a co-director at the GPDA, said that Spa was always going to be handled cautiously. A lot has happened at this track, he noted. The FIA announced on Thursday that they were taking a conservative approach. Perhaps that should have been communicated better to the fans. Yeah, exactly. And I remember hearing on the Grid Talk podcast, which I'm also on every now and again, but I remember hearing on the review for that for Belgium. I haven't verified this myself, but I do remember hearing that part of the problem was down to the track surface, like Fernando Alonso was saying, that the most wet parts of the circuit, basically sectors 2 and 3, they were not diamond cut, therefore they were more difficult, whereas the first sector, which is effectively the little straight going on to La Source and then Le Combe and Eau Rouge and all that section, that is essentially section 1, and that was all diamond cut. And because of that, the track was not as wet at those parts, but it was very wet in different parts of the track. I mean, all sorts of things come into it. I mean, Spa's that big of a track that you can get some parts that are relatively dry and some parts that are even wetter. We saw it on Silverstone, but, you know, Spa is an even bigger track. It is not only a longer circuit, but it also covers a far bigger area. You know, it's the shape of a gun, basically, compared to Silverstone, which is almost like an oval in terms of its overall profile. I know there's a lot of corners in there, but you know what I mean, the overall shape of the outside of the track. So there's a lot of different factors here, and you know, clearly the spray is too much from these cars to run in wet conditions. You know, the tyres that Pirelli supply are up to the job. They can run in those conditions, but the problem is the spray is so bad from 20 Formula 1 cars hoovering up hundreds of litres of water every single second. Thousands, actually, if you add it all up. It's just impossible. It's just not safe. And if you can't see, you can't race. You wouldn't race in fog, so rain should be any different. You wouldn't race during nighttime conditions when there's no lights out on the track. So yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. What can be done? What should be done? Will next year's cars be better for this? For my money, they should be. Will it be enough better? Will they make enough of a difference to make this a lot better overall? I have my doubts personally, but the proof will be in the FIA pudding next year. But yeah, like, share, comment, subscribe. As always, guys, have a fantastic day on the world today, and we'll see you soon for much more content on the world of Formula 1, just like this.